What's good, everybody? So it seems that 2.8 has ignited a new Wuthering Waves gacha story war. Oh my god. I don't think I've seen this much discourse about a story since Frolova's quest, since 2.5. But I'm gonna be honest, I think the vibes are a little bit different compared to 2.5. I think back in the Frolova area, we were discussing like characterization of a character and critiquing how they told her story, you know, through that quest. But now it kind of feels like in 2.8, not only are we like critiquing like a story, but it's gone to the point where like we're critiquing the people watching and enjoying the story, which I think is a different beast altogether, and something that I don't personally want to indulge or divulge in, because that seems to be a little bit unnecessary. But there's been a lot of different opinions from a lot of different creators. We have people like Gachasmack talking about the story. We got the boy Amethyst Abrams, who doesn't like the story. The story arc was not for me. This video was initially titled this story is hot garbage. You've got Saint, who is going as far as saying that like he hopes Uma wins game of the year. He ain't even mad if Uma wins game of the year. You have people like Age, who actually quite enjoyed the story. You have people like Legions, who was like, you know what, he's blown away by it. And then you got people like me who are like, yeah, it wasn't for me, but like I appreciate it for what it was. You know, I'm a bit indifferent. You could call me a fence sitter if you like. But there's been a wide like scale of different opinions, and I figured that we are going to go into this, have a look at everyone's opinions, see what people are saying, the community response, and then I will get into my thoughts about 2.8 and try and give a bit of a I'm trying to level the playing field here. I'm trying to give a level-headed, nuanced sort of perspective on all of this, because I really feel like I don't feel extreme on either end of this spectrum right now when it comes to the story. So a lot of the discussion first started happening because of the man, the myth, the legend, Gachasmack. He was one of the first to play through the story, and his response got a lot of people talking. Okay, like his reaction, bro, this almost has 1 million views. This almost has 1 million views. Let's see Gachasmack's reaction to this moment in the story real quick. Let's have a look.
To face the future alone anymore.
I feel like bro always has the most insane reactions to things, dude.
This shit corny as fuck.
Whether or not you agree or disagree with him, you can't help, but I just can't help but laugh.
Bro, I've never seen a girl down bad as that, bro. She down bad, dog. She got them high school girl crush ass, bro. Chat. I ain't never seen a girl head over heels like that, bro. She done gave every other girl before her the run for that money, dog. Oh my god, bro.
I think he's crying. It sounds like he's about to cry. Is it just me? It sounds like he's about to do it. He's about to cry. That's so funny. So you have people like Gachasmack that felt a certain kind of way about it, and he was getting criticized for, you know, being someone that doesn't watch romance anime, and he lists all his animes out and goes, fun fact, it's hard for me to get into an anime with zero romance. It's because you don't like slice of life and rom-com. Isn't why you thought the story sucked, and don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking that. That said, the quest was a solid 2 out of 10. That said, the quest was a solid 2 out of 10 on the first half and a 5 out of 10 at best on the second half for me personally. No, this isn't rage bait. If you feel that way, it's because you're incredibly insecure with your own enjoyment and feel the need to project and validate that insecurity. For the first time ever during an MSQ, I used the skip button because it was unbelievably fucking ass during the first half. The clip of me below explains precisely what I thought of the story in the second half. Cringe to a comic degree. So I think it's obviously Gachasmack is someone that has a very strong feeling towards this kind of, like, you know, romance situations. Do you know what? I think it's so funny. It brings up, because this is how I felt about the Shorekeeper quest, and now it's just so ironic to see other people feel the way I felt about 1.3, feel the same way as they do about like 2.8. It's actually hilarious. Like, it's so funny how it's like completely shifted, but like that's just something that I noticed. But anyway, but I do think if you are if Smack feels the way he does about the quest, if you're someone who feels the need to like go in there and say you're a piece of shit garbage human being, your opinion is worth absolutely like nothing, you're terrible, you deserve like nothing, then that's like not okay. That's obviously not okay. You are cringe, and he's right by saying you're incredibly insecure with your own enjoyment and feel the need to project about insecurity. However, on the flip side, if you're someone who is, you know, like actively being, if you enjoy this, you're cringe virgin garbage loser, if you say something like that, obviously, I'm not saying Smack did, but if you're someone who's gonna make a take like that, you should expect people to be hitting you back with the same kind of energy, right? Like, I feel that that's what it is. Like people match energy. If you're being very extreme in the way that you would take, you need to understand that people are going to be pretty extreme in how they respond to that take also. It's just matching an energy of a room, and something we should come to expect. And I think every creator knows that. The energy you put out into the universe is the energy you will receive back by comments, whether or not they're justified or not, right? Whether or not they're justified or not. Then we have Amethyst Abrams, okay? Wuthering Waves 2.8 story was 100,000% filler, by the way. Anyone that tells me otherwise, I'm sorry, my friend, but yes, it was. This is not something... I personally, I don't think it's filler. I think it's a main story quest because there is world building that we have to understand to progress the main story for 3.0. I feel like it was a companion quest mixed in with like a world quest. I feel like they should do what Honkai Star Rail does and call it like a continuance quest rather than like a main story quest. That's my in-between take, right? That's my in-between thing. Like, it should have been called like a continuance. You know, like we have after story and stuff like that with like Chi-Yuan. Like, I feel like this should be like a continuance quest. So it's very obvious that this is something that links two things together. I think that would have been more of an appropriate way of kind of like labeling it. I don't think it was filler for the pure reason there are concepts in here we have to understand for us to progress the main story. So literally by definition I couldn't, but I understand why people think the tone and vibe would be filler, because it is a story arc that is contained into one patch. There is a whole beginning, middle, and end, and a conclusion to an overall story that happens in 2.8. It's not like the whole 2.x where everything is interconnecting over like various patches and you thread the needle through all of it. No, this had to be something that was all done in one patch for us to move on. We had a story arc from beginning to end, and then we move on. And then we have, like, you know, our reasonings for going to La Haroyan 3.0. And obviously, Amethyst put out a video. He has a 30-minute review. Originally, the video was titled, "This story was like hot garbage." And now it's like, it's not for me. He's someone that's of the crowd that's not particularly into it. You also have the number 1 or number 2 Kuro bot, Saint Totus as himself. I think bro's on his like kill Kuro games arc at the moment a little bit, but that's fine. Hey, you know, it is what it is. He goes, "Not gonna lie, I ain't even mad if Uma wins Game of the Year after that 2.8 main story quest." That's crazy. That I will say, that is wild. Judging the whole of Wuwa based on like 1 or 2 like patches for Game of the Year, considering the insane run Wuwa had this year for 2.0. I think we forget how long a year is. we were all like dick riding this game so heavy the first like 6 to 9 months of the year because it was genuinely like actually pretty good. And now it's like, nah, I think this shit sucks, so Uma should win, is like wild. Obviously, I think this is being hyperbolic. I genuinely think this is being hyperbolic, as, you know, Saint kind of is a lot of times, so I don't think I will place too much stock in that personally. He goes, it was clear that it was rushed, tons of abrupt cuts, dialogue that didn't make sense, and we had a whole tutorial for the Nami Pond stickers and stability when it isn't used a single time during the quest. Bruh. I will say, a lot of this is exactly the same reason why I wasn't the biggest fan of 2.8. Not because of the Chisa characterization. I think you could tell, like, he's not talking about Chisa. He's not talking about the romance side of things. He's talking about the actual, like, plot progression and how the gameplay of the story actually was in 2.8 that he had an issue with. And I said yesterday as well, it's something that was the reason why I wasn't too, you know, locked into 2.8 either. So I think it's pretty, you know, this is an interesting take side of things. But of course, people are already in the comments being like, it's gotta be rage bait. Like, people think that, like, he's not being serious. People think he's just rage baiting and he's not being serious and he's like trolling. Like, it's so funny. People think like he's joking. Like, he actually loves it. But I don't know. Bro's on an anti-Kura Games thing at the moment. So I don't know about the whole trolling, but it's I think a lot of people are kind of missing the point, because the stuff that is here is actually, I think, incredibly valid. Like, this is incredibly valid, yet no one is really talking about what he's saying. And instead, it's just like, oh, you didn't like 2.8? Well, you're a rage bait troller. But I think that comes from the fact, if you start a tweet being like, yeah, Uma's gonna win Game of the Year after that, it doesn't matter if you make a valid point afterwards, because people are just gonna focus on the fact that you said this. To your audience of people who are obviously Wuthering Waves people, yeah, of course they're gonna have a negative reaction, right? I think that's just a logical conclusion of how that comes about. And there we go. I don't think it's valid at all. We can discuss this because I also have similar feelings, but we can go into like the actual like layout of 2.8 itself. And then we have age. We have Age. Love the Age. I love Age, my good bestie. I might be coming in here with an unpopular opinion, but I just finished the 2.8 story quest and I honestly had a great time. I can understand people's frustrations with it, especially since it's labeled as a main story and not an interlude companion, but the overall quality of it in both the experience and story was pretty solid for me. Though, as a disclaimer, I did go into it with a much lower expectations because of all the Doom posting. That's very fair. My initial rating post-quest finish. As a main story, 7 out of 10 max. As an interlude companion, my overall enjoyment, 8 out of 10. It was super beautiful and creative cinematically, and though the plot and writing was a bit cliche, predictable and nothing crazy, it was solid enough in its execution that I'm not super disappointed in it like I was in 1.3. Sorry, Shorekeeper Enjoyers. That's my girl right there. The lore jobs were also really good, though a bit sudden, and did a good job of getting me intrigued for 3.x. Honestly, I think this is very reasonable. I think for me, I would say as a main story, it's like a 6. It's a 6 out of 10. But for like just like fun factor, maybe I'd give it like a 7. Just for like the fun factor of it, right? That's what I would probably go with. So that's her take on obviously she this is the wrong take and she needs to Doom post the game more, obviously. And then we have Legions. Holy essay, bro. I am not gonna read all that. I ain't gonna read all that. I ain't gonna read all that, so we're just gonna read the first little bit because this is more like a review down here or whatever, but we'll talk about the first little bit. Man, I went into War 2.8 patch with very low expectations, but I was blown away. I will start off by saying, if you are from Japan, Korea, or China, you most likely loved this quest. As an anime lover and how much anime has influenced me over the years, I actually love this quest. If you love romance anime, rom-coms, or slice of life drama anime, you probably love this patch. You are someone that enjoys shonen. If you are someone that only enjoys shonen or isekai action slop, then you probably hated it. I feel feel like I was very much so the target audience for this patch. I didn't always used to like romance anime. I actually used to make fun of it and dudes that watched it, but ever since I opened up to them a few years ago and have watched so many incredible anime that have become my favorite anime of all time, like Violet Evergarden or Your Lie in April, it has definitely made me appreciate anime as a whole much more, as these stories are usually very relatable and philosophical pieces of media. Okay. And then he goes off into digging a bit more deeply about the story, but go watch his review if you want to see more about Legions' takes. So obviously he's someone that really enjoyed the patch, and then you got me. And then you have me, and then you have me, and then you have me. I said I gave 2.8 a 6 out of 10. It's probably closer to a 5 though. I'm talking purely like a main story quest material. Most of that comes from the visuals and cinematography. I genuinely think Kuro leveled up immensely. My gripes are less to do with Chisa's characterization and more about sloppy story writing, and it's clear it was just seen as a catalyst to introduce 3.0. That was it. I was saying that I think the strength of 2.8 is not in the actual plot of what fucking happened. I think it was but you know what? That's fine. That's okay. It doesn't have to be something high stakes, amazing, whatever. That's fine. But I'm also not going to pretend like it was an 8 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of my thing. I'm not going to pretend that it's like an 8 out of 10 when it doesn't match an 8 out of 10, like a 2.2 for me. Like, it doesn't match up in terms of like overall scale of a main story quest. I'm thinking main story quest potential and story writing. And like, I think it was fine and it did its job. I think it did its job absolutely perfectly, but when I'm comparing it to other parts of like Wuthering Waves as a whole, there's no way I could put it on the same level as like 2.2 for me, right? Like I just can't justify why I would do that for myself. But do I think it fulfilled its job, like of what it was supposed to do? Yeah. I think it was simplistic, it was straightforward, and it doesn't have to be amazing or spectacular. Do you know what? Sometimes watching like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 is fine. Sometimes that's okay, and you can still enjoy that. But that's from a main like quest perspective for me. But if you enjoyed the whole Chisha moment and that made it better for you, like if you're someone who cares more about like the characters than the plot and the story and the the undertones of the overall world building, if you care more and you put more stock into characters, of course you'd rate it higher. Like if you don't really care about how and why something happens, but like you just like the story of the character, then your priorities are different for an MSQ. And you know what? I am not going to sit here and tell you how you enjoy a story or how you enjoy pieces of media. There's a reason why there's so much choice. For example, with anime, there are so many animes out there. If something isn't to your taste, that's fine. There'll be something that is, and vice versa. That's okay. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that you're wrong for enjoying something in a certain way. I will never do that. I will never do that. But what we can do is we can discuss and have differences of views and see why. But I will never sit here and tell you that the way you enjoy your story is wrong. I'm not going to do that. And then I go on to say, Chisa's story really just masks the holes and lack of substance the plot of part 1 actually has. I do believe this. I think the actual plot of part 1 is very surface level. It's very shallow. It doesn't have much substance. That I feel that's just kind of like an objective truth, but that's okay. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just actually doesn't have that much going on. So that's why they give you a lot of Chisa, because that's really the more getting to know Chisa is actually, Kuro is banking on the fact that you find that more interesting and more valuable than the actual plot of what's going on in Hanami. That's how I feel. I feel like Chisa's backstory and her interactions are what's kind of more important than the actual like situation that's going on. But people will be too preoccupied either loving or hating her characterization. I'm indifferent. I don't care enough. Chisa to me is like a character that I'm like whatever with. To me personally, I don't find her particularly compelling. I kind of mentioned this before. She's very tropey in the sense of like high school girl that gets bullied because she's different, and so she suffers because of that. To me, that doesn't really do anything for me. Maybe I'm just old and miserable. If you want to have that take, go ahead. Maybe I'm just old and miserable and I lack empathy, but I feel like I've just heard that story so many times that it doesn't tug at my heartstrings. What I do find compelling is Chisa then ending up in Hanami and kind of having her childhood taking away, or her teen years, whatever, kind of taken away because all the people that she made friends suddenly are all like old now. She'll never be able to have those people back. So, and that's a more compelling and interesting narrative, and that's what I'm like, okay, I actually really do appreciate that level to her character, and it makes it a lot deeper. But like, so it's like half and half. The backstory is there, but I understand how the current situation like influences that, and that I care about, right? But overall, I feel like that was the more interesting thing to me than like the actual plot of what was going on in Hanami. But we'll get into that. And then I go, part 2 is just absurdly silly and I can't even be mad. You know when something is so ridiculous it's good? Yeah, that. I stand by this. I think the second part was literally just to be a goof fest. The whole cafe thing with the standee, I died. I thought it was very immersion breaking, and I'm like, okay, this is just meant to be goof. This is just meant to be. This is just meant to be like silly and goofy, and I'm just gonna, rather than be mad at it because I can't be mad at it, I'm just gonna ride the wave and embrace it and just like find something funny in the middle of the goofs. That's how I approached it. I was approaching it from finding it silly within the goofs. I have a lot of thoughts, and tomorrow's stream is gonna be interesting. And here we are. So again, for me, I'm not going to tell you how you enjoy a story, or if you whatever, and I'm not going to be like, oh, if you enjoy like romance tropes then you're an incel virgin. Like, obviously I'm not going to say something like that. And if you are a creator who's going to make like an extreme take about something like wooer doesn't deserve awards or like stuff like that, obviously people are going to have a negative reaction and match your energy and inner response, right? That is, people are going to match your energy response. We just kind of have to like understand that. But I feel like we can have like a reasonable discussion about this that is going to have difference of opinion. Here's the thing, when people have already got their views, they're not really going to change their mind. And you know the number one way of how you don't change someone's mind? It's being a dick to them. Like, you are never going to change your mind because you're being an asshole. In fact, people are more likely to like stay clear and never change their mind. Like, that's not so. If you want someone to change your mind, you kind of have to make them like your viewpoint to some way, or make them like you, or whatever it is. So it's, you know, you're not going to change anyone's opinion, but at least we can have a reasonable level-headed discussions about everything, right? So that's kind of my overall assessment on the current 2.8 situation from other creators. I think it's just people will match the energy that you put out. I think it's totally fine that there is a difference of opinion. I don't think there is a correct view. If you are someone who thinks, no, there is one objective view that is right and correct and everybody else is just objectively wrong, then you are also part of the problem. Like, I've seen some people make comments that like, no, this is like objectively one of the best patches ever, and it's actually like really good, and if you don't enjoy it, then there's something like wrong with you. Like, you have to understand that that is a take that is not gonna fly, or is just not gonna stick with that sort of stuff. So that's how that goes along. But it's interesting. It's interesting. How do you guys feel? We'll have a quick chat discussion, and then we'll see how you guys feel. Great example is smacking people. You said fly. The problem is calling people names just because they differ with one another. Exactly. That's the problem. Like, if we're name calling and being aggressive and extreme to others, then it's just not gonna help.
Twitch.tv/Captain Cabinetz, Captain Cabinetz.